My wife and I got married just over a year ago, and we've been together for over 6 years. I trusted her implicitly and we had a good relationship. We have a house, 2 cars, and a dog. We don't have kids, but I was hoping to start a family with her this year. Shortly after our wedding, my wife started talking to a guy from her work. I didn't think anything of it, but they began talking every single day, and at the same time, our sex life started to deteriorate, but I didn't think it was related. My wife became more distant, and one day, while we were looking at TikToks on her phone, she immediately hid a notification from a guy when he messaged her. I started to have doubts, so I went through her phone while she was asleep. I found out that they'd been talking every day for essentially the whole time we'd been married. She completely neglected my messages and made no effort with me, but would banter with this guy all the time. She sent him pictures of herself in swimwear, and some of their conversations ended abruptly and made no sense, so I think she was deleting messages. I ended up freaking out and accusing her of having an affair, but she denied that anything happened, and told me that our sex life sucked because of me, then demanded we start therapy. She said I was overreacting, and that they were friends, and then went on to accuse me of violating her privacy. We started therapy, and I began to believe her. I felt awful about how I acted, and I even told her it was okay if she wanted to be friends with that guy again, but I'd like to get to know him too. I started to work on what she wanted me to do during sex and how to initiate things. It wasn't long after that, though, that I got an anonymous email from someone claiming to be her coworker, and they said that they saw my wife kiss the guy she was messaging, and outlined how intimate their interactions at work were. The email had my wife's affair partner's contact information, but I couldn't bring myself to confront him. Instead, I confronted my wife, and she said that all they did was kiss a few times, but they never had sex. She said that she lied to me when I confronted her about the text messages because she didn't want to lose me, which is crazy because she went on to kiss and talk to him afterwards. If this isn't gaslighting, I don't know what is. She kept denying that they had sex, but they spent time together alone, both inside and outside of work. Telling you guys this story sounds ridiculous, and I feel stupid for believing her, but she insisted that she loved me and wanted our marriage to work. She had an emotional affair with him and wanted me to believe that it never went further than that. She said that she chose me and would have left me for him if she wanted us to separate, but still, I had a sick feeling in my stomach, and it was telling me that she did sleep with him, but I didn't have any proof. She always had excuses, reasons, and justifications, but if I caught her in the act, it would have been a no-brainer for us to separate. I got the email from my wife's coworker 2 months ago, but I still don't know what to do. I need to know that she didn't have sex with him, and she keeps telling me that nothing like that happened, but I don't know if I believe it. She makes me feel ridiculous for not believing her when it's clear that she's very capable of lying. We were on the verge of having our first kid, so a part of me is desperate for it to blow over so we can get back to creating the future we were supposed to have. Is it possible for us to rebuild our trust? And how long will it take before we can get back to something like we had before? My wife doesn't want me to bring this up to my family, so I've only really been able to talk about it during therapy. Financially, separation would be worse for her than it would be for me, as I have a much higher-paying job, and I think I'm young enough to recover without having too many issues.
OP kept going on about how his wife didn't want him to leave, but her actions don't reflect that. In my opinion, if she really cared about her husband and respected him, there's no way she would have put him through all this pain. Cheaters make me sick because their actions strip their partner of agency, forcing them to live a life that they haven't consented to. This isn't the end of OP's story though, but let's quickly check out a few comments before we move on.
Winchester for Life says, "Why does it matter if she actually had sex with him or not? She cheated already, even without that factor, so it should be over already. Do you need to see them go at it to believe that she cheated? She lied, gaslit you, kissed another man, deleted texts, and hid things from you. You should absolutely contact that man to see if you can get any aspect of truth, but regardless, you should leave her. You deserve better." Tight Shift replies and says, I couldn't agree more with Winchester's response. Privately meet with an attorney to start planning your divorce, and you may want to consider getting a private investigator. But if it was me, she'd have been shown the door already. Consider scheduling her for a lie detector test, as gauging her reaction will likely be quite entertaining. And I would definitely contact her coworker. Would he happen to be married too? If so, blow it up. These two have treated you like a piece of crap, putting you in therapy to convince you that nothing was going on when it was. Frankly, your wife doesn't deserve your love. And personally, I believe that you will be out of your mind to start a marriage with her at this juncture. She's already betrayed you on an emotional level, and most likely on a physical level too. Before I sent her on her way, though, for my personal satisfaction, I'd put both of them through the ringer.
I think those comments were pretty measured, but let's move on to the rest of OP's story.
Thank you all for your comments. I read every single one. I was in denial when they all started rolling in, and I was honestly looking for people to tell me that it would be fine, and that they've been through similar situations. A lot of people who commented could see that I was in denial, and while some broke it to me gently, others were harsher. But honestly, I needed both. Ultimately, you guys were right. It shouldn't matter if they had sex. The gaslighting and the emotional affair were enough. Her true colors came out when she got caught, and I'll never see her the same way again. But let me tell you what happened next. After staying up all night, reading the comments that everyone left, I got dressed and went to work. I left work at lunch and met up with my older brother and his wife, and they thought the world of my partner, but still agreed with everything you guys had said on Reddit. We talked for hours, and I spent a lot of it crying, and they were furious that I didn't come to them sooner. But I think my wife was intentionally isolating me, stopping me from talking to people who were close to me. All my therapist did was echo what I wanted to hear, but the second I talked to my brother and his wife, things started to click. I called my best friend while I was at my brother's place, and he had the exact same reaction, so I decided that I was done and getting a divorce. I texted my wife, letting her know that I wouldn't be coming home, and she started lighting up my phone with messages and phone calls, but I ignored them. My brother and I both called in sick for work the next day, and ended up playing video games and drinking. He wanted me to drop her and move on, but a part of me wanted the whole truth. But I knew that she'd never tell me, so I got creative. In the middle of the day, I called her affair partner using the number in the email. I knew he would lie, but I told him that she came clean and said you guys only had sex once, and that it was a mistake. And all I wanted was to hear his version, and after that, I'd leave him alone. He was clearly panicked and immediately agreed. He then confirmed that it was only once and that it was a mistake, but he wouldn't tell me when it happened. After our call, he said that he'd be blocking my number, but whatever. That was just the beginning. My brother was curious about how one of my wife's coworkers had my email address, saying that it didn't make sense because it wasn't a publicly listed work email, it was a personal one. I mindlessly started going through my inbox and found old emails from a recreational sports league team that I organized a couple years ago for my friends, and my wife had invited one of her close female coworkers and her partner to join. This coworker had my email and could have sent it to me, but my brother told me to stop because this was bordering on crazy. But my sister-in-law wanted me to continue. I called her workplace and asked for the coworker's phone number, identifying myself as my wife's husband, saying it was for a social reason. They gave it to me, and once the workday had ended, I gave her a call. I told her that my wife's affair partner came clean, and that I think she's the one who emailed me. She immediately admitted to it, and said that she hated not approaching me in person, but was too scared to do so, thinking that I might snap at her. She didn't care if anyone at work or if my wife found out. She was just grateful for the fact that I wanted to hear the truth. I thanked her for reaching out, and said that I couldn't talk to the affair partner again, but wanted to hear her side of the story so I could tell my lawyer. She said that she'd gone no contact with my wife, and confirmed that my wife had an affair in extensive detail. They had sex anytime I was out of town, or anytime I was working late or overnight, both of which happened multiple times a month. She also told me that it started weeks after our wedding and that my wife had essentially been bragging about it to this coworker in very graphic detail. When asked why she wouldn't leave me, my wife talked about how comfortable her life was, how much money I made, and that other people thought I was good-looking. This caused her coworker to snap and cut ties with my wife, and she desperately wanted me to find out. She was horrified by the situation because she'd been cheated on before, and my wife was aware of that. She said that some other friends also knew, which felt like a betrayal because they've known me for ages and have been to our house many times. I wanted to call them, but my sister-in-law stopped me because she thought they'd give my wife a heads up, and that I might enjoy catching her in another lie. I slept at my brother's place for a second night, and let my wife know that I'll be coming home in the morning. When I got home, she was waiting and asked me what was going on, saying that she was worried sick, anxious, and was furious. I told her that her affair partner came clean, and that I knew she slept with him on various occasions. She broke down and said it was just the once and that she loved me, but couldn't admit to it because I would leave her, and that I was better than this other guy in every way. I asked her to promise that it was just the once, and she did. She said she was desperate to move on from this, have kids, and continue with our comfortable life, and that I should let it go. Things got quiet, and I just started laughing because I saw her for who she really was. I told her that I knew the whole truth, and told her about some of what I'd heard, and was only here to grab my things and take our dog. She was in disbelief, then screamed at me and locked herself in the washroom. I packed a to-go bag and have been at my brother's house since. To be clear, I understand that the emotional affair and kissing should have been enough to end things, but I'd just been in a fog with all the constant lying and fighting, and for some reason, my brain latched onto the idea that they never had sex, and that somehow meant we still had a chance. My wife made me feel like if I could just get over a kiss, things would be fine. But getting the truth certainly made it much easier to see her for what she is. I'm also getting a new therapist because the old one should have helped me see the gaslighting, trickle-truthing, and manipulation for what it was.
I'm glad that OP kept digging for the truth, because in most cases that involved cheating. The cheater is very rarely honest about what they did. OP's wife would have gladly taken away her partner's agency, letting him live a life that he didn't consent to. Since she enjoyed being with her co-worker so much, maybe she can go and build a life with him. Let's see how long that lasts. Before we head out though, let's quickly go through some of the comments that were left.
Weightless Rock says, "You're a strong man, OP. The composure, the planning, and the realization. God bless your support system. You executed the plan flawlessly, and with enough information, you came through the situation in truth. I wish I did the same as you when it happened to me. Still, we overcome, grow, live, and learn." The OP responded with, "Honestly, posting here was the smartest thing I did in months. I know the first post wasn't massive, but I just wanted to show how those comments helped, and people were right. I couldn't have done it without my brother and sister-in-law either." Snowword says, "I'm glad you have a support system. I am also glad that the coworker reached out. So many are afraid to tell a spouse, so she deserves some flowers for doing the right thing." Magnum TV says, "I'm not going to lie, brother. When I read your first post, I wanted to reach through the screen, shake you and yell, 'Wake the hell up!' The good thing now is that you have a plan of action to save your sanity and rebuild yourself. I'm sorry you had to endure this, and I know that this can make trusting someone else very difficult, but you can get through this. I believe in you. Good luck, brother."
I'm glad that OP was able to dig himself out of this hellhole too, and hopefully, anyone else who hears this story is also able to find the strength they need to pull themselves out of a toxic situation. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Coffee and Popcorn, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.